Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. My name's Radha, and I'm here with our regular seekers, and we're reading through the Bhagavad Gita. And today we are in chapter 6. We'll start with text 26. We'll do two texts today. Hopefully, we'll get through two texts today. And we're talking about Ashtanga Yoga in the 6th chapter of the Gita, and we're talking a lot about the mind. We're really kind of honing in on the mind and talking about how we can use the mind the mind can either be our friend or it could be our enemy. And it all is dependent on how we train it, right? Or if we train it. And so we're talking about the mind, we're talking about how we can control the mind, and we're talking about even some of the tricks that the mind will constantly play on us. But the big thing here for us all to really walk away with and to really kind of imbibe and realize is that we are not the mind. We have a mind, but we are not the mind. And the mind is just a part of this vehicle that we're moving around, this temporary existence in this material world. And it's also the filter of which our consciousness goes through, right? Like our soul, our consciousness is a symptom of the soul, right? And it goes through the mind. So whatever gunk is in our mind, our consciousness is going to become tainted with. And so it's important that we know the mind, the nature of the mind, and so that we can better use it to uplift us, to uplift our consciousness instead of degrade us. So with that, we're going to start with text 26, chapter 6, text 26. And whenever you're ready, Stella.
Thank you.
Thank you.
From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self.
Thank you. This is a popular one. If you're like a yoga practitioner, like you practice asana, like the physical practice of yoga, I feel like this is something that you hear in classes a lot. You know, that the nature of the mind is to wander. It's flickering, it's restless, it's easily pulled in many directions. Again, this is simply how the material mind behaves. Expect this to happen because this is the nature of the mind. And just as gravity pulls an object downward, material nature constantly tries to drag our consciousness down. So if we're not aware of it, that's just how it's gonna go. Just like gravity acts, our consciousness is gonna get pulled down. Right? And we can't change the nature of the mind itself. It is what it is. This is what we've been given. This is a part of this material package that we have, this material vehicle. Right? But we can change how we respond to it. Okay, and this is what you hear in yoga classes a lot, right? Like instead of getting frustrated or discouraged when the mind drifts, right? Krishna tells us to gently bring it back again and again. Just notice. Just notice where your mind is and bring it back. I think I've said that 100 times in a yoga class, right? Notice where it is and bring it back. No judgment. Don't attach any feeling to it. It is what it is. This is how the mind functions, and just bring it back. And this constant act of noticing where the mind is and bringing it back is how we start to transform, right? It's where transformation happens. It's gonna purify the heart. It's gonna steady the mind, and it's ultimately gonna advance us on the path of yoga. And it all begins with being aware of where our consciousness is. It's so easy to get caught up in what's going on around us, right? We're looking for better opportunities to enjoy or to have fun, the greatest vacation, right? But rarely do we think about improving the medium through which the experience goes through, right? Through which we experience everything, which is our consciousness. It's like if we try to control our external environment so perfectly, and we forget that really the biggest difference is going to be made in the filter of which our consciousness is going through, right? And that is our mind. That's our mind. And this oversight can undermine all of our efforts for a more fulfilling life. For example, even if we're in the most beautiful place on earth, you get that great vacation. You're sitting on the beach, it's like beautiful, the most amazing place ever, right? If we're in a fight with our loved one, we're not going to enjoy it. Right? Our mind is going to be in that mode of ignorance, and our consciousness is going to be affected. And even if the environment is stunning, if our inner state is disturbed, we can't truly appreciate it. Right? So that's the first step to really to elevate our consciousness is first becoming aware of where it is. Where is our consciousness? And that's what this verse is encouraging us to notice. When your consciousness drifts, gently bring it back. Right? Gently bring it back. And learn to question your consciousness. It's like if you have a friend, who talks all the time, they talk all the time and you kind of learn to tune them out. But one day they come to you and they have like a certain urgency and intensity, and they insist that there's something really important. But before you take their words at face value, you're probably going to pause and kind of like assess them. Like what's their mood? Are they upset? Are they exaggerating? You kind of try to get their angle on it before, and that's like the filter of which you're even really hearing what they're saying. They're really even believing it. And we need to do the same thing with our mind. We need to check our consciousness. Like before we believe what our mind tells us, ask yourself, am I feeling overly attached or resentful? Am I caught up in an intense emotion? Is my mind influenced by the mode of passion or ignorance? Start to kind of identify where your consciousness is before you go into believing all the stories that your mind tells you. Understanding that that's how they're going to be kind of tainted, right? And if so, if any of those things are true, if you're really emotional, if you're overly attached, if you're charged, it's probably not the best time to listen. It's probably not the best time to listen or act on your thoughts. Just like muddy water needs time to settle before it becomes clear, the mind needs space to calm down before we can trust its guidance. Because we should understand that most good ideas and ideas that are worth pursuing are come in the mode of goodness, right? They're clear, they're grounded. And the mind, this is when the mind is capable of being steady, reflective, genuine clarity, where we can truly like assimilate and verbalize, actualize the insights. This happens in the mode of goodness. So if our mind is not in the mode of goodness, if our mind is very passionate, if we're very upset, even if we're just like feeling a lot of stress or pressure, we should be careful to listen to the mind. We should just take a step back and pause. Right? And think, what state is my mind in right now? Because when we understand the condition of the mind, we're in a much better position to decide whether or not to follow its lead. And we can all probably think of experiences. I know I can, of a time when your mind was clearly influenced by a particular emotion or mood, or mode, a mode of nature, and how that affected our decision making, and then how that even played out for us. I think about this fight I got in with my sister years ago. And she was kind of throwing a fit. I think I've talked about this before. She was kind of throwing a fit over something that was just not that big of a deal. And everybody knew, that she was just kind of going off and nobody was really saying anything. And she just kept poking, like, and finally I just like blew up on her, and it was like, and at the time I was like, I'm just being honest. I'm just telling you. But at the same time, I was in that mode of passion. I was like, I wasn't steady. I wasn't calm. I wasn't reflective. It just wasn't the time to try to communicate, even my side of things. It's like, let it calm, let it settle. And then you can have some kind of productive conversation. But if you're not there, it's just not going to be productive. And it's not usually it's not going to lead to peace. It's not going to lead to that mode of goodness if our mind is not in the mode of goodness. So even more than, you know, even more than focusing on what we're focusing on, notice where the mind is, because that's going to influence everything around you. Does anybody have a similar experience, where your mind was clearly influenced by a particular emotion or mode, and that affects your decision making? Even like when we're tired, if you're in the mode of ignorance, if we've all probably experienced this. When you're tired, you're more likely to, to fall into bad habits that you wouldn't regularly, or to snap at a loved one. That's a pretty common one. No. Sometimes I get really in the mode of like controlling, controlling, controlling. Like this is the mode of passion that that I like overcompensate. It's like I say, go too far. So we just have to notice what mode our mind is influenced by. And again, not overly identify with it, just notice it and try to connect to things that will uplift our consciousness. And that's the practice here. That's why we do what we do. That's why we come to these classes. That's why we meditate. Right? Because we're trying to transcend these modes. And this is how we elevate our consciousness. This is the process. But it all starts with noticing. Stella, please share.
Um, yeah, it's really, I have a kind of a chronic migraine condition, and when it gets really bad, um, I have noticed that depending on the mode I'm in, or can choose if possible, there's such a different reaction to when I have to, I can't function because of the chronic illness kind of thing. And if I'm in the mode of ignorance, I'm just lamenting. And, I'm laying there and I'm lamenting. And if I'm in the mode of passion, I'm calling out to my husband, do this, do that. It's like, and he's like, no, you're in bed. You can't control the house. You're in bed. Um, like I have to give it up. Like I want to do the things, but I can't do them. So I'm telling other people to do them, which is like,
Yeah.
or if I can choose a mode of goodness, I use that time to completely be at rest, realize my position, try to listen to something good, or even if I can't even listen, sometimes it's that bad. I just try to remember who I am and who I belong to, and so like I could be laying in the bed and it's three different people.
Wow. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. And that's such a perfect example too of like it's the same situation, the same person, the same, but it's just you're just influenced by different modes of material nature, and that
Yeah.
and that plays out differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's perfect. Thank you. And that's exactly what it is. And the point is not to, again, like we're not trying to say one is good or one is bad, or it's just like noticing where we are, and wherever you are, trying to uplift the consciousness. And we do that here as bhakti yogi practitioners by connecting with source. That's ultimately going to uplift our consciousness wherever we are. Practices like meditation can bring us into that mode of goodness. Or I love what you said. Sometimes you can't even do that, and you just try to remember. Just try to remember who we are as spirit souls in our relationship with divinity. Thank you.
This is
Steve.
just so nice. I notice like I'll get hard on myself for getting stuck in those other modes. And I can remember a few chapters back we were like really talking about the modes, and I remember feeling that peace of like, oh yeah, I don't have to be so hard on myself. And this is such a nice reminder because especially in the morning, like I really struggle with getting up on time, and like I want to get up and like do more in the morning, like chant my rounds and things like that. And with working, I just like, or like with summer right now too, I'm just like on a bad schedule of going to bed late and getting up right before I have to get ready for work. And I'm like hard on myself. I'm like, oh, I slept in again. What's wrong with me? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, yeah, in the morning you're tired and the mode of ignorance is really influencing you. And it's okay. And, you can overcome this, but not by beating yourself up, like, and yeah, so this is just such a nice reminder of how the modes really influence us at different times. And it's not
Mm.
like we're lazy or we're whatever we want to label ourselves. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah, and that's so true because all of us are here. All of us have material bodies. All of us are, bumping around in this material existence. Like we are all influenced by the modes of nature. Like there's no way out of it. I mean, there is a way out of it, but for where we are right now, that is just where we are. And sometimes people will like to say like, even like with your sleeping example, like I'm so disciplined, I'm so controlled. And that's good, but you can get overly in the mode of passion in that kind of mindset, like trying to be the controller. Or you can even get overly in the mode of goodness when you become a little bit proud of uh, of how disciplined you are. So even that, it's like just it's not good or bad. It's we're trying to transcend the modes altogether, and noticing these things helps us helps us to be more aware and to be more mindful of like when we need to kind of stop, evaluate, and choose something higher. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Mariah. And Stacy, did you want to share something with us, Stacy?
Hare
You still, oh, there you
Krishna.
are. Krishna.
Yes, and I know that the squares move around. Danat pranams to everyone. I humbly ask for your obeisances. Um, so I was initiated yesterday.
Congratulations.
Um, it was really it was here. So this is kind of like one of those things where my guru forgot my beads at the temple. And I was sitting there and everybody had their beads and he was putting them out. It was not, there was like six of us. And I couldn't let go of it. I just kept crying because I kept thinking, like, this is so, like, I've been looking forward to this day for over 10 years. And how can my guru forget my beads? And I just couldn't make sense of it in my head. And people were taking videos and pictures, and everybody was so happy. And we were doing the artsy, and I just was trying so hard. I mean, I finally did let go of it, but I guess it's still kind of like it pains my heart. And I don't know if that is a mode of passion. I don't know. And I'm even embarrassed to share that my guru forgot my beads, like, and my friend said, like, the beads are just a formality. Like you're already initiated. Like if he's initiating you with beads and having you come up and giving you a name, that is just the formality, as is if you're living with someone and you've been together for 10 years and then you get married. Not say it's not exactly the same, but the formality of it, right? And I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm here with people that I know are more senior and have knowledge. So I wonder if I'm trying to let it go. I think is the piece, and I think it relates to like some of you share. Like it's hard to sometimes, like you were saying, like sometimes like with your sister, you have this. So I have it too, and then sometimes it's so hard to just let it go and accept
Yeah.
the beautiful part of it.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow. What a test on your first initiation day. What a test. And it's interesting how our minds are such like meaning making machines. They turn everything into like something, and it just doesn't need to be. You do that. And it sounds like, maybe a little bit of both, like passion and ignorance, your mind is influenced by. And then you turn that meaning into something, and then your mind just kind of runs away. And that's the practice. That's such a beautiful opportunity for this practice. Is like, okay, my mind's running away, reel it back in. Reel it
Yeah,
because
it just kept telling me, "You're not important. See, you're not important. He doesn't have your beads. He forgot them. You're
oh
not really
no, see,
important."
and it's such an opportunity to say it's actually mercy for you to have this opportunity. And this is the way we have to reorientate the way that we see things is when we're spiritualists, is it's like this is an opportunity for you to notice where your mind is, to notice where your emotions is, to notice where your mind's running away and reel it back. And when we have these big opportunities, to the degree that we can do that when it's really difficult, we're making progress. We're transforming. Right? And the fact that you had this big test on this big initiation day, it's such a nice reminder, like, hey, you're not the controller. You don't get to make the terms here. It's like you don't get to decide that because things are this way, it means this. No, like that's not for you. And we just have to trust. We just have to trust, and we just have to take shelter of Krishna. And we have to see when our mind is working against us. And we have to call it out. We have to call it out, and we have to let it go. Right? Because that's the practice. And every opportunity that we have in our lives to do this makes us stronger, brings us closer to God, if we choose to use them like that. Yeah. Wow, that's hard though. That's a big test for you. That's huge. But I wouldn't see it as you're the one that, is the least. I'd see it as like, look at all this mercy that you're getting, this opportunity to to let go and to let God. Because that's ultimately what your relationship is with your guru. It's not on your terms. Right? It's a divine relationship, a divine arrangement. Yeah. I remember when I was waiting to get initiated and COVID happened, and I felt so upset and so like slighted that COVID happened and I couldn't get initiated, and it was like I remember having a conversation with Kastuba, and I don't remember exactly what he said, so I don't want to put words in his mouth, but the way that I felt was like, this is like, who am I to think that I get to decide how this goes? It's like that's the whole point of initiation. It's like I'm letting go. I'm surrendering to a guru. It's not up to me anymore. And that's beautiful. It's scary, but it's also beautiful because it's like something so much bigger than us has our back. It's like
Yes.
there's so much
It's been
security in
sort of
that.
like I did actually let it go yesterday, and when he called me up and gave me my name and my paper, and he said he got just like regular beads from the someone brought him some beads, and he chanted on them, so I would have something until George could get my husband could get them tomorrow. And but people that are further on there, there's people that are behind you. There's people, no one's like better or worse. They're just people are longer on the path. Actually, I was talking to a good friend of yours, Rukmini's husband. He was there, and I spent a lot of time talking to him, which is wow, like what a blessing that is. He's like so knowledgeable and so, and he said, that because my name is Shakti Devidasi.
Oh, what a beautiful
Uh,
name.
Mm.
So nice.
And so appropriate if anyone knows me.
Yeah.
Shakti. Right? So he goes, that also it means Shakti, it's you have that energy, but it also means listening. And so like I just feel like this last couple of weeks, so many things have been thrown at me. And I feel like they're a test. It's like Maya saying to me, "You're going to be initiated. Look at this happening. Yeah, look, you oh, why don't you do this one or whatever it is? You can't even do this. While you're getting initiated, you're not worthy. Like, I feel like Maya is so like shaking me, going like, don't, you can't do it. You don't deserve it. It's such an old tape. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but it is such an old tape that I really want to like rip the tape up and just stamp on it because all it does
Mm,
is cause me misery. Even
yeah.
the most beautiful day of my life, and I
Yeah.
was able to get past it. So that's good, you know.
Amazing.
But
Wow, you're so fortunate. And that is like what's on the wall of your mind that your consciousness is going through, that narrative. Like you said, it's like taped to the wall. And one of your big challenges in this life, in this time, is to tear that down. Yeah, just like you said, just to tear it down because your consciousness is being tainted by that, and that is obstructing your connection with God because it's distracting you. It's distracting you and it's bringing you back to the ego, and you get stuck in it. And that's what happens to all of us. We all have different things taped on the walls of our mind that taint our consciousness as it flows through. But thank you for sharing, Stacy. So relatable, and we're all cheering here for you. We're all here cheering for you, and I'm just the fact that you're here, you're sharing, you're trying to assimilate it and to move on is like a testament to the progress that you're going to make, and therefore the transformation that you're going to have through experiences like this. So, yeah, thank you. Stella, did you want to share something?
Yeah, I just put in the comments a little bit. Too, I think we had some stuff with our beads too. It's it's maybe Krishna saying, don't focus so much on the ritual external items. This is a time to focus on the internal. Like the beads are just a tool, you know, uh, to affect the heart. So whether the beads are there or not, the heart could still be, chanting kind of thing. It's like it was set to be initiated as such an internal thing. So maybe that was to, I'm just saying that's just what came to my mind was like, whatever the externals are in that situation, the real happening is internal.
Wow. Yeah. That's why these things are even like opportunities for us, and like why it's mercy, because
Yeah.
you have an opportunity to make that connection. Because without it, then you're just depending on whatever it is that's holding you up. But when these things get taken away from us, then we have the opportunity to really go deep.
I want to just say one last thing is someone told me that um that if you're sitting in that seat around the RT, you're getting ready with everybody. You're already like you're initiated, like Stella said here.
Yeah.
Beads are just like that's what he was saying. Like if they're not, they're a formal thing of we're giving you the beads, we're giving you the name.
Yeah.
But if he feels that you can sit there, if my
Yeah.
guru feels I can sit there,
Yeah.
already I'm in his mind, I'm initiated already.
Yes.
So I get to
Yes.
go, right, Stella?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And Krishna's very mischievous and naughty. So he's the source of all remembrance and forgetfulness. So he was just, he's playing. He's playing with you.
Aw, so nice. Thank you, Stella. Mariah, did you have something to add to that, or is your hand up from a previous time?
No, I wanted to add, I just think it's so beautiful to remember that spiral theory, but I like how you have the tape on the mind of the consciousness. But that spiral theory is like we're not life isn't linear. It's not like, oh, we go through, we recognize, oh, I have this pattern or this negative belief about myself, and I work through it this one time and then it's done. No, it's like as we're going up the spiral, as we're practicing bhakti, as we're getting closer and closer to a more deeper eternal relationship with Krishna, these things are still there. And it's Krishna's mercy to show us, oh, I still have this negative belief. oh, I still have this negative consciousness. I still have this, old tape playing in the background. Thank you for bringing it to my awareness in this moment. And he'll do that. Krishna will do that. I'll make sure the beads are forgotten so that you can bring into your awareness that you feel these certain ways about yourself sometimes. And I want those to be gone. So I'm bringing them into your awareness. Right. And, and like, that's been so helpful for me because I still struggle with it because sometimes things still come up and I'm like, man, I'm still in this consciousness. Like I thought I got over this negative belief about myself. But to switch it, like you were sharing, this is Krishna's mercy. Yeah, it's Maya in a sense testing you, but it's also Krishna's mercy showing you, hey, you have this old pattern of thinking, rip that tape off, let it go, work through it. It's a cleansing, right? Like when we clean a room, the dust comes to the surface and we have to clean it. So yeah, it's very purifying. Like that it just shows a testament of that ceremony and how purifying it is that it brought all that up for you to be purified and washed away. So it's very beautiful. And thank you for the reminder.
Wow, that was so nicely said, Mariah. That was really perfect. When you were talking, I was thinking of like a light turning on, like Krishna doing this arrangement is like turning a light on in her mind to say, hey, this is still here. Let's clean this up. Because if that light doesn't get turned on, it's going to affect you whether you know it or not. That default, like I'm not good enough, or whatever the default that Stacy's talking about. Unless we have these situations that can turn the light on for us, it's gonna be there. And some people never want the light turned on, and they don't get that mercy,
But
or they do and they still don't see it. But that's why I
Radha,
love
it's
what you
true
said.
though that they say, isn't
Yeah.
it true? And Mariah, I want to thank you. That was beautifully said. But somebody had told me also, because a lot of people were loving people around me, which thank God, thank Krishna. Um, is that also like the ceremony, the ceremony of it all is about letting go of these old karmic behaviors that just keep the tapes, the stickers, the whatever they are, and it's letting go of them. And like Mariah is saying, like I think it really this is just a big one for me, and part of it maybe was even my ego. Like, what do you mean? Where are my beads? Like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe I don't know, but just knowing like that, that's what it wasn't. It wasn't. It was something for me to grow, right? So.
Yeah. Wow. Fortunate you, Stacy. Really special. That's a special all that you can take away from that. I mean, look at how much you're growing just day one of your initiation of your
I
spiritual
just
life.
I just wanted to say that you have an extra beautiful light about you this morning, so it's obvious that it's there.
Aw. So nice. Such a nice discussion. Thank you all. And things that we are so relatable for all of us. As the next time we go through something and we feel like it's a major setback or we feel super emotional about it, it's easy for us even to look at Stacey and say, oh, this is such mercy, but when it happens to us in our own lives, it's so hard you get stuck in these narratives, these patterns, but to see everything as God's divine plan and for your benefit, just bring it back. It's what we're trying to do. Instead, the mind gets tainted, the mind gets covered, the mind gets cluttered, and the consciousness flows through it and becomes a victim of the mind, and we struggle. We struggle. So that's what this verse is about, noticing that struggle, stepping back and just bringing the mind back, bringing the mind back. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada often spoke about the difference between a Godas, which is the servant of the senses, that's what Godas means, and a Goswami, which means a master of the senses. And the difference isn't that the Goswami is free from stimuli, right? Like they experience the same world, but their response is different. because the person controlled by the senses reacts impulsively. They feel this, they're going to react. The Goswami, by contrast, they trained their mind and their senses to serve the soul, right? Not to serve the ego, but to serve the soul. So they might experience the exact same thing, but the consciousness and the response are completely different. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're in training, right? Right now, oftentimes we are godasses, right? We are masters. We are servants of the senses, right? But we're trying to train ourselves to be masters of the senses. And the difference is that you train the mind and the senses to serve the soul, right? And not to serve the ego, to serve the body. And it takes time. This consciousness takes time. But all these, that's what life is, right? It's like it's all these little things that we go through. They teach us that we suffer when we serve the ego. Right? And they teach us that we feel the ultimate connection and joy when we serve the soul. And so let's turn it all inwards. Because ultimately, we have to control the mind, or the mind will control us. It's like a rider on a horse. If the rider becomes inattentive and the horse spots something tempting, like something on the road to eat, even grass. I used to have horses, and I remember my mom, I used to get so mad at my horse. I had this little pony, and he would stop and eat grass all the time. And my mom would say, just imagine you're walking through a field of mashed potatoes. At the time, I loved mashed potatoes. But it's like, this is what a horse does. They see something, they stop, they eat it. That's what they do, right? And if you're inattentive and you're not paying attention, they're going to stop, and they're going to eat, right? And the more it does that, the more it's going to do that, and the harder it becomes for the rider to rein it in, right? And in that moment, the controller becomes the controlled. So in the same way, we're souls, and we're riding this horse-like mind. Right? And when the mind begins to contemplate a sense object, it quickly becomes infatuated. The mind wants what it wants. The mind is going to react the way it's going to react. Whatever emotion it's feeling, it's going to be like that horse. It sees something, bam. It is going to start racing towards that object, and it's just going to pull us along for the ride. And we begin to identify with the mind's desire. We accept it as our own. We imagine how doing whatever we're feeling like doing is going to bring us so much joy, right? And the mind, it focuses on it. It picks up speed. It becomes increasingly difficult to control. Right? So again, this verse is telling us, notice before the mind gets out of control. And even if it gets out of control, even if you get thrown off, right, you can still get back up. You can still climb back on and slowly regain control, right? You can reorientate yourself towards a life centered on principle and purpose, right? The process of falling, it still hurts. It's still going to hurt. It's still going to be a little embarrassing. It can even be avoided if we notice the mind before it runs away. Even like with Stacy, feeling this intense thing, like she could have just wallowed in that narrative and let her mind just create all these meanings and kind of spiral down, right? To the point where it was like she was super discouraged in her initiation day. But she's doing the exact opposite, right? She's noticing these things are coming, right? The mind is coming, but she's noticing it, and she's reaching for what she can to combat it, right? She's coming to classes like this. She's sharing her experiences. She's listening to advice of others and trying to assimilate that. And in that, she's combating the mind. But the mind is strong. And before she knew this, it was probably difficult, if not impossible, to control the mind, because we just identify with the mind. We think whatever we're feeling in the moment is it. Right? And that can be dangerous because the mind is by nature, it's impulsive. It's like childlike. So we have to be smarter than the mind. And we have to notice when the mind is starting to come to combat us, and we have to be prepared, right? We have to be prepared. We have to pull up our troops, gather our troops, and come against it, right? And the more that we do that, the more that the mind is going to kind of I don't know all the battle terms. I wish I knew more of them. The mind's going to kind of scurry you away. But it's going to happen. That's what we have to do. The Gita tells us, use our intelligence, sustained by conviction, to fix the mind on the self. Right? That's what Stella was saying, even when she has a migraine and can't do anything else, just to remember who you are. Right? And this focus is going to open the door to the highest happiness, right? The deepest joy. Just bring it back to Krishna. Katie, please share with us.
Hi, Bull. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This was making me think of some tools or new ways that I think I'm trying to work with the mind a little bit. So I have two examples, and hopefully I can explain this well. So I think sometimes for me, of course, the main goal is Krishna consciousness. As I mentioned before, like, hey, act like a devotee, like check valve. And so I might have shared this before, but I had like a small car accident right before the Vrindavan retreat in April, and it's totally like
Your service
like,
is not
almost in it.
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry.
I don't know why.
I can hear you. Yeah.
It's just a little bit choppy.
Can you guys? Oh, nuts! Is that any better?
I think so. Let's try. Let's try again.
All right. I'm gonna walk to the modem and see if that's better.
Okay.
Okay. How's that?
Let's try.
Better? Okay. Thank you.
Let's try.
So let me try to summarize. So basically, I had this little accident. It was totally my fault. And I've never I've like sideswiped a couple things or curb checked, but I've never had like I ran into something in the front of my car, and it turned into this lesson of like, wait a minute, I am trying to become a mom. This isn't a lesson to like start driving like a mom, like practice, and not like, in my mind, I was like, I feel like a testosterone driven teenager. Like sometimes I'm so angry in the car, and it really helped. And by Krishna's graceful miracle, like, even though my back hurt a little, and the nice man that I ran into, like, he was like, just in case my back hurts, like, and I was like, oh God, we exchanged info. There was like the most minimal damage to my car, nothing to the back of his trailer, which was like this lower part of a trailer. I couldn't really see that extended. And mine was too close anyway. So like by Krishna's mercy, I was like waiting to see if the insurance called, and he clearly, but anywho, it was such a miracle. It was like nothing happened really. Like nothing bad happened, except I had like a small backache for 2 days. And that was a miracle. But what it really helped me was like have this kind of smaller, more specific goal that's like helping me on the main goal to treating people better, being in Krishna consciousness as much as I can in my consciousness, in my mind. And it's just helped me. I was like, wow, who gets in an accident and it's like totally fine, and all it does is help me with something I really want to work on. And that was a miracle. And then side note, Gandharvika's sound bath on the evening in the middle of the retreat, like just cleared out all the final backache, because it was like right before that. And luckily I had a ride, anyway, and my car was pretty fine. So whatever, totally cool. But it also and this class right now was just making me think, like, for me, having a kind of like a series of steps of smaller goals, because it can be overwhelming to just think like, oh man, as you guys know, I really don't dislike my boss. Like, there's a lot of anger there. And it's made me think a few minutes ago, like, what if I can make another smaller goal for the mind on the way to the bigger goal of Krishna consciousness? That's like, when I get so angry, can I remember and think that this is practice? Like, in the future, hopefully our future child will act out, will throw things, will do things that seem like, oh my gosh, why are you doing this to me? And then can I practice now, like starting to control the mind and the emotions, where it rolls off more and it doesn't affect my ego so much, you know? And actually what also made me think of it was yesterday I was driving to an old friend's house to ride together to a funeral, and I stopped, like this old man was panhandling, and I gave him some change, and he got really mad that it wasn't like bills, and like threw it and like yelled at me. And I was like, I'm sorry, sir, I don't have bill. Like, I don't know. And then I was like kind of upset. And I was like, wait a minute. Um, there's, and it just made me get in this mode of thinking like, how quickly can I let this go? Like, can I feel compassion for him? Like, can I turn this into a way to practice? Like, this is not the most important part of today. And it just put my mind in this mode of like trying to reorganize those powerfully charged emotions that are just so linked with that basically are the fuel of our thoughts. And how it's helpful to me to make these like smaller, more specific goals. Like, hey, when I get angry at my boss, can I use that as practice to realize like my hopeful future child is going to throw a toy at me, like the old man tried to throw the money, or did throw the money, Yeah, so I'm sorry, that doesn't, I was trying to make this come at a time that was natural to the conversation. So, but it just thought, I thought to share, like, for me, these smaller goals are suddenly becoming more helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And also, thanks, Katie. And also, what you're doing here is you're choosing to see these obstacles as opportunities to grow in your spiritual life and to uplift your consciousness, where they could very well be the opposite. You're choosing to see them in a way to uplift you. And in that way, they're helpful to you. These things that happen to you, you turn them into like, things that are helpful to you. And this is the great segue into the next point here. This is why having a clear sense of purpose, like a personal North Star, is so essential, right? Because the mind by nature is going to wander, it's going to waste time, it's going to go here and there, it's going to have 10 million different impulses and urges that arise, right? But when we know what truly matters, who we are, what we're doing here, when we're taking these small, steady steps towards these meaningful goals, we gain a reference point, right? And we have something to measure our thoughts and decisions against, right? So like when a tempting or random thought pops up, or we just want to like chew our boss out, right? We can pause and ask, like, is this actually important? Does this actually align with my deeper purpose, right? It's like your deeper purpose, your mission, it's like a backdrop to everything that you're doing. And it's like, are these small decisions that I'm making in my daily life, is the way that I'm showing up, is the way that I'm treating this person, is this aligning with my deeper, with where I'm going, right? And if the answer is no, we can let it go. Or we can even just place it on the back burner, right? But the point is, we don't need to get lost in it. And this is why this conviction in our path is so crucial, because it's these small decisions that we make every day that shape where we actually end up, right? And if they're not aligned with our higher purpose, then we're just going to be walking in circles at best, and at worst, we're going down, right? So that what you're saying is like so perfect to what we need to do here, which is notice, the mind, the urges, the narratives, pull it up, turn on the light, evaluate it, check how this aligns with your higher purpose, your deeper calling. And if not, try to let it go, right? Because our conviction in our path is so high such that these things that don't serve that journey, we can let go. We can let go because they don't serve us. And that's exactly what you did. So that was so perfect. Thank you, Katie. Thanks for sharing that. So this last point that I want to talk about here before we go is just to understand. So we know that the mind is going to run away. It's going to flicker. It's going to have these urges, right? The other thing, that the way that the mind works is a lot of times the past impressions in our mind, not a lot of times, but this is like, the operating manual for the mind. The past impressions in the mind shape its future behavior, right? So like every time we give into a distraction, right, we reinforce the tendency to be distracted again. And then you can just like insert anything there. Anything that you do on a regular basis is you're reinforcing that behavior. And this is how the mind becomes conditioned. This is how the mind becomes trained, right? Like impression by impression. So one, we need to be aware of what constant impressions we're putting in our mind because that's affecting our consciousness. And it's like that narrative that's written on the wall of your mind. The more that you play it, the darker that lining is going to get. And as your consciousness goes through your mind, the more dirty that your consciousness is going to get because of that. This is the way that the mind works, impression by impression. So one, be aware of our impressions. And also, the other thing we can do is understand that when it comes to interchange, the size of improvement isn't as important as the impression that it leaves on the mind, right? So that means that like better, if your goal is to read the Bhagavad Gita, better to read a little bit every day than to say, okay, once a month I'm going to sit down and read the whole day. Because every time that we choose, that we make that decision to direct our consciousness towards something uplifting, we're creating an impression in our mind. And if we do that every day, that impression is getting darker and darker and darker. And that's what's going to lead to change. Right? That's going to have more of an effect than if we just binge one day a month. And we see this even like in our, any of us that have like tried dieting. It's like make little small changes in your day rather than like try to just completely change everything all at once. Right? Because it's not sustainable and it doesn't actually lead to lasting change. Right? And because the more often that we repeat an action, the deeper that impression becomes. Right? And the more naturally we're inclined to act that way again. And we should know that this is true for both uplifting habits and self-defeating ones. Right? These behaviors, they create momentum, and that builds slowly but steadily. And this is what reshapes the inner landscape of the mind. Right? So this is why real transformation, it doesn't always come in a flash. Right? More often it unfolds gently through repetition, through these small, sincere efforts made day after day. And it's that steady momentum that gradually carries us forward on the path of meaningful change. And so that's what we're going for. Better that you have small, consistent efforts than like, you maybe over endeavor or this is the better way to create change. And the same principle applies when we talk about being distracted. If we're distracted constantly from our spiritual practice, if we sit down and something distracts us, we're gonna get in that mode of distraction, right? And we're always gonna be distracted. So whatever it is, recognize that if it's becoming a reoccurrence in your life, it's starting to form your consciousness. The mind is always trainable. Impressions are constantly evolving. So just notice what's constantly showing up in your consciousness, in your life, your patterns, your narratives, your behaviors, right? And try to slip some small changes in there, because this is how we start to change our consciousness. Okay, so this verse is reminding us spiritual mastery isn't about never getting distracted. It's about learning to return, right? To redirect and to respond with intelligence instead of impulse. And do any of you have a small, steady practice that's helped you feel spiritually grounded, like even a little bit? And I know when I've talked about my deity worship before, I used to have a very elaborate deity worship before my child was born. And then when she was born, I was trying to keep up, but it was a struggle, and such that it became just kind of like a chore. And then I started missing days. And so I just had to say, I called my Shiksha guru. I was like, I can't keep up with the standard anymore. he's like, listen, just do this. And it was like literally a 3-minute puja every day. And so now I do it first thing in the morning, and it's very attainable. And it's like, it's, it feels much more sustainable and feasible for my life right now. But it's where I was starting to fall off, even doing it at all. And then I'd start feeling guilty. And so then I couldn't even like, I started to go downhill, and I was noticing it was like, okay, I need to kind of refresh here. What's something that's sustainable, that fits for my life, that I'm still showing up. And I feel so good about it now. It's like I really enjoy that 3 minutes. I really feel connected. And sometimes we have to do that. We have to kind of see, okay, what's more sustainable or realistic or something that I can just keep showing up for, because that's creating that impression in your mind. And that's ultimately how we're creating real sustainable change. Does anybody want to share anything about that?
For me, I don't have like a set time for a lot of things I do at home because my days are all so different. But weekly, like showing up to this class, weekly going to Kirtan Center, weekly trying to make it to the temple. At least I usually go on Sundays. At home, I do try to offer water and incense to my deities at least every day. It's not always at the same time though, because when I'm not at work, I have to do it first thing. But when I'm at work, sometimes I don't get up in time. And so then I do it as soon as I get home from work. Like I shower and get home. But that actually is really helpful because then it's like, it helps switch out of work mode and back into like, okay, I'm in my own space and I can bring up my practice again. Um, so those little things have been, those are the things that like keep me steady. And, yeah, but the weekly, like getting together with other devotees, it's like, man, that's been life-changing for me. It's been supporting me so much because I had a practice on and off. Like I remember I could sustain it for like 3 months on my own. When I was like a teenager, different phases at when I was a teenager. Like once when I was like 15, another time I was like in my 20s, when I was in college. Like I was like steady at different points in my life, but I would have no association. So then when I would go and associate with other friends who weren't into Krishna consciousness, I would just fall right down. Like it was like, I'll just hang out with my friend today, forget all that. And then I would get so far away from it that I'd be like, where's my practice? Like what? Like, it was really drastic actually. And man, having devotee association is like it is so necessary. I know we talk about it, but like Krishna really gave me the um the understanding of how important it is by showing me all those years how impossible it was for me to sustain any practice and how
Mm.
now I've been pretty steady for like the past 2 years. I mean, I'm not always steady in like the proper amount of rounds, but just being able to consistently show up to this class, to the temple, to Kirtan Center. I mean, it's been like 2 solid years now, and it's just so amazing. It's like really
Yeah.
have to have devotee association. Can't do it without it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
just those times when you get to go and be in kirtan or with others. It's like that's what keeps me going.
Yeah. So true. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mariah, for sharing those insights. And I even feel like it's not even so much about the time of day that you do it as your relationship with the practice. And it's like if it's too much that it's more like stressful than it's actually purifying to you. Maybe you're just not there yet for whatever reason, internal or external reasons, whatever reason. It's like it's okay to kind of scale back and try to just make it consistent. But yeah, your relationship with it is what is so important. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
that.
Thank you. Anita, did you have something to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to share. So for me, I do the same in the morning. I would go and do the deity worship.
before I go to work, and it's very short because busy time and at home when I work. So like today, it's a month that's dedicated to Lord Shiva, and so I did a little bit of the Shiva Lingam puja, light my diya and incense, pick flowers, and do all of it. But it's not a long process. So I do that every day, and then going to work, I listen to the bhajans and chanting, and Sundays we go to temple, and then that's where we have more of a practice where we do puja, worship, bhajans, talking, classes, and all of that. So that's what keeps me going and pulls me back into um, the spirituality aspect of it. But earlier, when we were talking about the mind, I wanted to share an experience that I also had, um, and it was a Christmas Eve, and I always take off now for Christmas. I take my vacation because we do a lot of traditional Guyanese cooking, and I enjoy it. So I took off, and I was in my kitchen doing some stuff, and I had a text message that came in, and this was someone that was chewing me out, very nasty text. And I was like so upset when you read the language of what they were writing. And I was like, what is this? I mean, where is this coming from? Who is this? And all of that. And my daughter was home also, and she read it. And then um, on an impulse, we started to text back and wanting to know who was this person. But the more we texted, was more nasty stuff that came. And from the language of what the person was writing, I could understand. I had a picture of who I thought it was, you know? Um, and I was so upset because I was thinking, what did I do to deserve this? I couldn't think of what I have done. And then I'm saying it's Christmas, what to get this, it just changes your whole mindset. And remember, this was a few years ago, so I wasn't where I am today. So I thought about it, and I said, who can I talk to about this? And then I texted Veda, and I asked him if I could call him, and he said yes. And I called him, and I explained what had happened, and who I thought it was and everything like that. And the first thing that he said to me was that, you know, I'm glad that this has happened to you. Now, the moment he said that, I was like, really? Like my whole brain and my whole mindset started to change, you know? I was like, why? You know why? He said, well, I'm happy because now you're gonna have to rise above this. God is testing you, Krishna is testing you, that you need to rise above this level, and that you should take this person picture, if you know who it is, put it in your altar and pray that Bhagwan put love in their hearts, because obviously they're voided of it. So the moment Veda told me this, my whole thought process changed. You know, I was so upset and so hurt about getting this text, but the moment he spoke to me like that, it made my whole outlook of what was happening different. And so I wanted to share that. And also, another one was where you had mentioned about your sister. So that has happened to me also, where before now, I was even quieter and more reserved. Mandir has made me come out of my shell and to speak and to stand up for what is right. But before, I was very, very quiet. And we have a sister-in-law that is, her personality is very out there. Like she likes to like just curse. That her curse is like a part of her language. you know, it just comes out. And our family are not like that. We don't grow up, we haven't, you know, weren't brought up where you use indecent language. Like I have never cursed in my entire life. And she's always like this. Even if you're in a setting, she would always use it against her husband, which is my brother. And everybody just tolerated it because it's been for so long. And, you know, you feel, well, okay, this is who she is, right? So everybody tolerated it. Even though they didn't like it, they didn't do anything. But then one day, she came by my mother's apartment and she was out on the road. This is in New York, on the pave, and she was cursing. And she was cursing my brother. But in cursing my brother, she was using mother. She was using mother in her language. And I was saying, and I was by my mother apartment, and I was saying, why is she using mother? You know, and at that time I didn't had all this knowledge. And I got so upset, you know, I would say she's so disrespectful to using the term mother before her language, right? And when she came in, I just gave it to her. I didn't know where all this came from. Like I was bellowing and I was like, I just gave it to her that one time. And I was like, and I didn't use any curse language. I just said, you know, you're so disrespectful that this is my mother. Who gave you the authority to speak like that about her? You know, mother is mother. It didn't matter if you didn't have the intention of speaking, it wasn't about her. So yes, you know, sometimes your mind, you know, control you, but I didn't know at that time if it was a good thing or it's a bad thing or whatever. But rarely happens. Like my patience, I have so much patience that you have to really get me to get to that point. But it happened, you know. But now maybe I could control better than before. But yeah, I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anita, for sharing. Yeah, so insightful. You all are so insightful. Appreciate you all. Yeah, so in conclusion, this verse is reminding us that the spiritual path isn't about having a perfectly still mind all the time, okay, but it's about learning to return again and again to what really matters. Right? The wandering mind is not a failure, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. Each time we notice it, drifting or running away, right? Bring it back to Krishna, right? And every time we do that, we're forming new impressions, strengthening new patterns, and transforming the very landscape of our consciousness. And so spiritual mastery is less about control and more about connection. And that connection deepens not through grand gestures, but through small, steady choices, right? Choosing to refocus, choosing to reflect, choosing to return. Okay, so let's not be discouraged by the flickering nature of the mind. Let's use it as fuel for our practice. Because every return to Krishna is a step closer to clarity, to peace, and to the joy that comes from aligning with our true selves. Okay, so that's all I have for you all today. And I will see you all on Thursday. Thanks for coming.